So welcome. I'm glad you made it in. Sorry for the delays that are happening this afternoon. Satsang is really one of the simplest things that we can do in life, because what we're looking for, our goal in satsang, is to find that which does not change. And in order to find that, we simply somehow have to meet a recognition in ourselves. And in that recognition, something very profound is met inside. Wakes up, we could say. And so, what is it? What is it that doesn't change? That's the truth inside. It's the truth inside your heart, your very being. And so really satsang is an invitation to come to the meeting of that within the present moment. And find out, who am I actually? Just to say, the question, to hold the question, who am I? It really takes you into a space where maybe we can see that we hold things in our minds that seem to be supportive of who we think we are. But the question is not who do I think I am, the question is simply who am I? So the effort that's happening in thinking when it emerges, it's really to be seen as changeful, because that's the way that it works. It comes and goes, yeah? And because it comes and goes, that shows us that there's a place that's watching the change of coming and going. Something is still present to see the change, to notice the change. And how do we really shift the focus? How do we really try to come to an understanding in the aftermath, so to speak, that a place inside of our own existence is the place that this is talking about? It already is so. If we can come to that clarity from the beginning, then whatever the mind presents, we can see it. And it's not quite really what's looking at it. That simple discernment takes us home inside, you could say. But how do we do that? Because the way the mind wants to get a hold of these pointings is to put it in a timeline, to say at point A, this is going to happen, and point B, this is going to happen, and point C, and so on and so forth, in the future. So if we can recognize what's in the mind about future, what's going on in the mind about future? Somehow, if we look for it outright, we're so active in the search. Well, what about my dreams, and what about this, and what about this? The mind may present various kinds of things. But if we can see that, what is it that's seeing it? What is it that's seeing it? The one who realizes this core truth in themselves is said to be awake, is said to have met at least the initial beginning seasons of awakening. And I say that because there are many things that can happen during the spiritual path, because we grow. We grow and we meet certain kinds of obstacles and energies along the way that help us sharpen our intelligence on a much higher level than just our knowledge that we hold in our mind. And so getting out of the mind really shows us what is it that is able to touch into those depths. Maybe not right away, but what sees the mind is the first step in recognizing, oh, wait a minute, I am able to perceive my mind. as it happens. It's happening. So to see that there must be some kind of distance there in what's presented and where it's received. And that's really what I like to focus the meditations on when we come together and sit together, is to really just try to surrender out of everything that's pulling the attention away from the present moment. If you could put it in a nutshell, that's it. And grace will meet you along the depth of surrendering into that, as grace is divine assistance, okay? Now, unless we understand ourselves, we can't even begin to understand what divine assistance means. So we first have to begin with ourselves. Who are we on this path? What actually is it that I'm made of that continues on beyond what's visible? Because we can already see that there is something there that's looking and able to perceive the mind. It's able to perceive the moods and the emotions and the heart space. It's able to perceive the busyness in the physical atmosphere or the calmness thereof, and everything else that might be presented in the manifest realm. Now, what's manifest? Manifest is something that's tangible that we could probably today use measurements and say this is so big and so deep and so on and so forth. It's tangible, manifest. But there's an even subtler level of manifestation that happens in the mind. Because when we start building concepts in the mind, we can kind of get these groups of concepts clustered together. And the heavier of a group of concepts that we're holding on to, that's the moment we start to feel headaches. We feel headaches because there's so much tension there. But we can only do with something what's present and what's clear. And that means the daily chores that are happening as usual, we've got to eat, we've got to, do the normal things. But in that, how do we use that to sort of monitor where the attention is going, outward, inward, what direction is it, how deep does it feel, really just kind of turning the focus inward, and not so much to the quality of it for the sake of making a conclusion in the mental story. Now be aware of that, because that's not the goal we're looking for, right? We're going for what's beyond the mind. So we use the mind to point us to that which is looking at it, inside. Who is it that's looking? There is something deeper than that which is changeful that is able to perceive the changeful. And if we really, really check in with that depth of here and now, here and now, something feels right about it. Intuitively. Yeah? So it's said that in some Zen monasteries, they'll sit and they'll listen to the phone like 6 times before they reach out and pick it up. They'll use it as a meditation. And when you call a Zen monastery, maybe you should do the same. So I've got a little message here I want to share about, this was imagining enlightenment. So I don't remember what's all in here. I talk about biblical things and sometimes about the Buddha and sometimes about Confucius or whatever. So, but imagining enlightenment looked kind of safe. It may be said that enlightenment is the ability to imagine what is beyond the imagination watching it. And letting that experience deepen long enough to become the explanation why such an imagination began in the first place. Biblical scriptures speak of being taught by an anointing, and this reality is what it's referring to. So I guess I could pause right there. Now, what does that mean? What does it mean to, in that context, to be anointed? It means that the truth is what teaches. There's one teacher, and it lives in all of creation, and that's what teaches. And if one finds that within themselves, you could say that that one is anointed. So anointed, awake, there's different terms that can be plugged in for different various perspectives on the same thing. Much like looking through a prism, you see white light come in one side and you've got all the colors on the other side. Or like a tree with many branches, right? They're talking about truth, and that's what satsang is about. It's about finding truth and recognizing it in the present moment. So again, this is still kind of in the biblical context. Yeshua Christ is a title that translates literally to, quote, salvation of the anointed one, end quote. It has been said that behind thoughts, feelings, and bodily sensations, the seer, the one we're looking for in the present moment, cannot be seen. Cannot be seen. So, because why? What changes can be seen. We're looking for the unchanging. So you and the unchanging, that's your eternal nature. That's the truth out of which all of your truth of truths connects. A self-image can be seen, but the seer cannot be seen. This should not for a moment be undervalued by the imagination. Or it will lack the fortitude of conceptual guidance to be used to assist one into the direct experience of the mystery beyond. You, and I being that mystery. Being that mystery. Why is it a mystery? It's simply a mystery because our mind can't know it. And that's okay. The mind can't know it because what's watching the mind is it. So the mind and it are not the same. They're not the same, except if you want to go all the way out on a totality of creation. It's all one. Okay? But right now we're kind of looking at the individual digits on the one hand, right? There's this character behaving this way and this character behaving this way, and it's all working as one complex creation. And so it is with the souls that are in existence. The souls and the spirits, they all have their harmonies and disharmonies with one another. You can tell that when you meet someone for the first time. You walk in and you get a feeling, well, I kind of like that one, I don't like that one. There's a feeling there. I'm not saying it's as intense or deep as a judgment of any sort, but just you can maybe feel when you walk into a place, it has a certain kind of vibe to it. That's not because of anything scientific. Now you could say you've used science to, psychologically enhance the beauty of the place. That's one thing. But I'm talking about that vibe that you feel inside. That's where life is happening, right? That's your life force. That's your creative responses that are dynamically active in your spirit. Right? Spirit, not your soul necessarily, but definitely in your spirit. So why don't we just go straight into a meditation from this point? And what I want the focus to be on is just the present moment and letting go of what isn't the present moment. Your work is in the letting go part. And the deeper you let go and just accept and surrender into the present moment, somehow you'll naturally find that your attention coming to rest is actually how you discover who you are inside. consciously. Whether it happens or not, that's a matter of grace. Okay, so questions. Any insights maybe? Any breakthroughs?
So when you're sitting in meditation and you're just learning how to sit in meditation and your mind just starts going, how do you suggest it?
Okay, that's a valid question. So, as the mind becomes very busy, sometimes as it will, filled with different kinds of energies, we can recognize that the first thing to do, if we're still in the mode of doing, is to see what is in the mind that we're holding on to. First thing, what are we hanging on to in our mind that we're giving so much value to? Maybe a pattern of ideas that keeps to be circulating throughout the day. Maybe it's a life situation that has to be dealt with in a certain amount of time, and we keep revisiting that. But seeing those kinds of things in the mind that we hang on to and we invest our attention into, when we come into a place of meditation, the goal is to let go of them. And so that's what the work is first seeing what we're holding on to, because sometimes it's like an undercurrent. We don't really recognize it, and that's okay too. We don't have to go diving into the depths to, catch that one, whatever's in there kind of thing. Okay, it's simpler than that. All we have to do is see, okay, well, here's this idea I'm entertaining with my attention. I'm entertaining it. Yeah, and so therefore, I cannot entertain it. There it is again. I don't want to entertain it again. I'd rather just rest my attention for this moment. That's why we came to sit down and explore, rest the attention deeper. Yeah? Just in that movement alone is already a freedom. It's already a transcendence of so much, ups and downs, splashing in the waves, so to speak. But when we let it go and just check in where our bare attention is at, before it's mixed in with any concept, it feels a lot like the deer in the headlights look, but without any jokes or humor attached to it. Just simply at rest.
How do you get it to the rest?
You have to recognize that you and the rest are one. And to do that, it's just a matter of not searching. And just notice it do that. Notice it doing that. And do nothing more. Just notice it. Okay, there it is. Okay, seems to be waning. Oh, wait a minute, because I made a judgment, it made it come back. Right? Because that's just the doer in another uniform coming around another angle to keep the search on. So really, how to do it is not so much the proper context on how it's built. It's about how do we discover how it's built. And that's through surrender. We let the mind go. It'll be there when we need it. Just let go of it. And as you practice doing that, you can reach greater depths, almost at an instant. Just, okay. You can check into depths that were kind of resting while you were giving attention maybe a little to something else, or, a little more here, more weight of importance. I like to put it like that because it's more about the weight of importance than it is the timeline. How much attention are we pouring into one thing and not so much into another? Now, I do not intend for that to be, oh, well, I should pour my attention into this much, and then this much. Then you get into the management role as a doer, and that's not what this is about. This is about really kind of getting through those possibilities and breaking beyond them, and then once that's let go. That's how the breaking beyond goes, letting go, surrendering. We can see what's flowing inside in the emotions. It may be very active, it may be very calm, but it's always changing until the attention is withdrawn from the movement in it. In other words, we're not picking sides on one part's good and the other part's bad. Right? Because if we feel like we want this part and not this part, then we've already inserted some sort of division. And that's just mind anyway. And if we can see that, we're still looking for what's deeper than that. That's the goal. What's looking at that, you see? And bringing the attention back to who am I, because the attention is who you are, but to meet yourself as the attention and not as the self-image that your mind might be holding, that's what really kind of changes the whole game. You come to see that all of the temporary is included in that. All of the changeful is included in that. The role is like these bodies. They have to have a storyline, and they have to do certain things to achieve certain, growth in the human experience. Well, the spiritual experience it works the same way, but without the personhood, without the, I have to compare myself to this one, or I have to compare myself to this one. The desire to compare is kind of the root of all of the mischief that we bring upon our own selves. But even in that, we can still go deeper in those moments of mischief that we've brought upon ourselves. We could call that karma, and say, well, who is it that's able to notice this? Choose that route instead of, I have to fix what I don't like in the mind. Don't make the mind your enemy. You just simply have to recognize that it has a position in existence, and it has a role to play in its own domain in this human experience. Yeah? And in that, when that connects to our heart space that isn't involved in picking sides, then there's a possibility of kind of merging consciousness and the heart together into one abidance of spiritual presence. So as we wake up to the who am I question, that's our being, right? In the present moment, that's being. We're being present. So our who am I takes us all the way to our dantian, the third center of the soul. Consciousness, heart, being, three centers. And who am I, it really connects to all three centers. Who am I in consciousness that can be able to watch the mind? Who am I in the heart that can feel the energies in the atmosphere and whether I like these feelings or not, these emotions that are happening inside atmosphere? And then the being who's present in the present moment. I am present in the present moment. And your I am is also present in the present moment. And our I am, individual I amness, is like the fingers on the hand, right? The being of totality is what the Bible calls the great I am. The great I am. So all the way out. Now, if you can't tap into all the way out, then you must not be on that level yet, right? It's a one-way street in certain in certain aspects. So all we got to do is prove within ourselves, well, where am I? Where am I? I am here. That's who you are. You are the being. You're not doing the being. This isn't about psychology. This is about the life force that's experiencing those kinds of concepts that we can hold in our mind. Who is it that sees it? So just checking in with that truth inside, it will teach you about all of the rest of the world that you need to know about in order to continue living from your inner truth. Because as you rest your attention out of the mind and more into just that feeling of okay, I'm home, right here. Yeah, that's where you really begin to understand the dynamics of the peace that lives within you. It too is something that's growing and ebbing and flowing in a very supportive way for the individual on the path. I think this is enough for now, though. Any more questions on any of that? Okay. Namaste.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.